Toto's Steve Porcaro talks about Weezer recording Africa and Rosanna and his guest stint on Jimmy Kimmel with Weezer. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. Well, things with this one kind of grew and grew. Weezer recording Toto's biggest hit, Africa, which reached number one in 1982, of course, from Toto IV, which had 4 top 40 hits, including Rosanna, which Weezer also recorded a week before. This all grew out of a viral internet campaign, which led, as we mentioned, to Steve Porcaro coming on Jimmy Kimmel Live and performing, well, the keyboard part to Africa with Weezer. And today he's our guest. Well, let's start with the Weezer thing, because
sure.
I'm watching TV and you're on there and I'm like a kid. I'm cheering, going, "Yay, Steve, way to go." So how did that all start?
Well, just them covering Africa, this 14-year-old girl. It's this amazing story. And then they were, I'm learning these terms. I guess she requested Africa, they did Rosanna, which they said that was the band was trolling her by doing Rosanna and not Africa. And then they came around and wound up doing Africa. And it's just, people are responding to it. And they, out of the blue, I got a phone call, asking me if I'd come and do the solo, if David and I would come and play with them. Jeff Babko is the musical director on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and he knew us, and I think they're always just kind of spitballing ideas, and he's just like, "Hey, I know the guys in Toto, see if maybe they want to come and play." And David's been under the weather, and that's his solo, and that's his song, and he normally would have loved to have done something like that and taken that well-deserved bow for the song, but I was glad to fill in. I just had to learn that keyboard solo real fast,
I noticed being on YouTube more than in radio for all these years that on YouTube there are blanket statements. A lot of people say things like, when Danny Kerwin just died of Fleetwood Mac, "Oh, they haven't been good since Bitter Green." People put a lot of blanket statements towards bands. There's also statements, people say, well, Steve Porcaro did all the synthesizer parts and David Paich did all the piano parts, but you just finished saying that was David's part. That's too broad of a stroke, right?
Sure, absolutely. David being the main songwriter, he was kind of relegated to playing the meat and potato keyboard parts most of the time, the piano parts. And live, I got to have all the fun. So, we started purposely giving him some fun things to do, and especially on that particular tune. Of course, I just like David, I kind of like to own the Rosanna solo, but you know what? Paich was right there with me. You know what I mean? I was conceptualizing it, and I had, I was off on a tangent with it and had this grand idea, but David was right there every step of the way. My big brother behind me, and it was the same with the Africa solo. I wanted it to be a Paich solo. I wanted him to do something fun and have it be his notes, but I was right there, programming and egging him on every step of the way.
Yeah. When I talked to, I remember when Mark Jordan released Reckless Valentine, it was the first time I'd heard an artist tell me this, because fans don't know sometimes. He said, when I was recording that stuff, like I Ching in the 80s, he says, people don't realize that I had like $1 million worth of keyboards to do that album, because fans don't think of that. But I mean, you were the guy with all those keyboards really in the band, right? You love that technology, right?
Yes. Well, that was also my slot. I mean, coming up, I saw my brother Jeff's career took off right out of high school. My brother Mike's career took off right out of high school. And, I wanted to be, I didn't know if a band thing was ever going to happen. And I just wanted to be a session musician. And the keyboard players, David Paich's and David Foster and Michael O'Mardian. And, I could go on and on naming these guys that are just like, people weren't going to hire me over those guys for a basic Rhodes part or a basic piano part. And at that time, though, in the early 70s, there really was this chasm between the guys who really knew about synths, which were pretty much nerds with pocket protectors that you didn't want to hang out with, you know what I mean? And, the musicians that, the great players didn't want to have anything to do with all that stuff, for the most part. Then it changed very fast, and more and more musicians started getting way into synths. But when I started, there was this big gaping hole, and I just smartly realized to make a weakness a strength, and I just really dove into synths in a big way. And then all of a sudden, David Foster and David Paich and all these guys, I was still getting hired for all those sessions, but they hired me to be next to them, tweaking, you know what I mean, tweaking knobs for them, which was like falling off a log for me. So it was amazing. I got to play on all these great sessions, and I wasn't the guy having to nail the piano parts. I was, sometimes I would play, and sometimes I'd just be dialing in a Mini Moog bass part, Mini Moog bass sound for one of these guys. And I just have always loved working with other keyboard players, especially ones that are a lot better than me, because then I know I'm covered. Yeah. They need an improvised jazz thing, something I can't do. I've got my big brother David Paich, you know what I mean, ready to go,
Weezer's take on Africa, as of this taping, has almost 5 million views, and their cover of Rosanna, I think, has 1.2 million. I talked to Steve Porcaro for almost 90 minutes. We covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of albums and a lot of tunes and a lot of great stories in and out of Toto. I love talking to him about growing up in his house, too. Remember, his brothers were the late Mike Porcaro and Jeff Porcaro. So we'll have more of our conversation with Steve Porcaro in the next few days. As well, look out for, we're hoping to put this one on tonight, Lenny Zakatek, one of the many singers of the Alan Parsons Project, but really, after Eric Wolfson, he was their main singer. We talked to him for a long time, and he tells us a lot of tales about the Alan Parsons Project, and also Jimmy Messina of Loggins and Messina, and he was also with Buffalo Springfield near the end of their career. He tells a good tale as well. So look for that in the next few days. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. We're getting great feedback from you wanting to join our team. Remember, we're looking for volunteers. By the way, we'll never stop looking for volunteers. At one point, when I was running Rock History Book, the other website on rock history, I think we had like 25 volunteers, and everyone really worked well together, and it was a springboard for some people who wanted to do more writing or video work, and it can be that for you too. Also, we're looking for guests. If you want to come on when stuff happens, you can be our guest and you can talk about the current events in rock and roll. So contact us via our Facebook page and just email us there. There'll be a link in the description of this video. Thanks for buying the Rock History Music t-shirts. We're selling a lot of them, and we appreciate that. If you buy one, by the way, send us a picture and we'll put it at the end rollout when we end our videos. We'd like to include you and thank you for supporting our channel. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.